we have last panel before lunch break, but maybe the best panel. Isn't that right?
Yeah, exciting times, yeah.
Something like that. We're going to be talking about data today. Very important topic. We have all of the amazing gigachads. I don't know how that translates, by the way, for the translation booth, but all of the amazing people involved in data on Solana and also other chains today. So maybe I'll let them introduce themselves because I think that's much better than me doing it. So let's start with Nick. Tell us a little bit about SolanaFM.
All right. So hi guys. So I'm Nick. I'm from SolanaFM, and we are a blockchain explorer. And we are only focused on Solana. And what we are poised to do is we're poised to build the simplest and easiest to understand explorer across the entire space. So that's basically us in short. Yep.
Cool. I'm Mitch. I am CTO of Switchboard, and Switchboard is a permissionless oracle. What I mean by that is anyone can build their own data feed, bring their own data on chain. There's no limits to what you can connect and what you can build with that. And it's really to expand ecosystems and what you can build, enable new markets, enable new data.
Hi, my name is Bobby. I'm the co-founder and COO at CoinGecko. We run two products, CoinGecko.com and GeckoTerminal.com. And what we do is we help users track price, market cap, trading volume, basically anything that you want to know about the millions of tokens out there in the world. Absolutely. And so all of these guys, I guess, address data from a different angle, right? So you've got the Explorer here. Explorers are necessary for pretty much anything that you're doing on a blockchain, right? You need to see where your transaction is. You need to give the transaction ID. I mean, that's really the single biggest use case, right? We've got the oracles as well with Mitch down there. So oracles, I mean, how much money depends on oracles right now? Maybe on Solana or just Switchboard? Or?
Yeah, I think the total markets on Solana, I have to see how much value secured by the chain is right now, but Switchboard supports about 2 billion TVS right now.
Yeah.
Hoping to grow beyond that, and we'll see how far we can reach in the Solana ecosystem and beyond.
Absolutely, yeah. So all of these lending protocols, a lot of these DeFi, projects, a lot of them depend on the Oracle data. And we've got Bobby as well, who's sort of across everything at CoinGecko. There's all these different chains. There's thousands of these dexes. There's millions of these coins probably by now. So these are definitely the right people to talk to.
And not to forget, Josh runs Step Finance and also Solana Flow, so he knows a thing or two about Solana data as well, so we should probably get his input on some things on Solana as well.
Bobby's pushing it back onto me now. We were saying before, oh yeah, well Step also does data, so yeah, okay, all right, well I'll talk about some data things. But firstly, I think the topic of this, what's next for Solana data? But everyone deals in data in different ways. So maybe we can start with Nick on what are some of the problems that SolanaFM or I guess the challenges, aka things that you've risen above and solved, or what are some of the things that if you're starting a data project you should know, and maybe some of the challenges involved in is it just a lot of data, indexing, all these sorts of stuff? What are some of the day-to-day stuff that you think is a big challenge?
This is nuts. So actually oh my god, is it 12 May or something, or is it 11 May? Okay, SolanaFM is about three years old now, and when we first started off, for the first 6 months, we focus a lot about queryable data sets. So it's SQL, we build data warehouses, and you got to store 1 to 200 terabytes of data in one place. And you need to make it queryable for anyone, right? Anytime. But then the query time would take 30 seconds or a couple of minutes, and that was just too long. And so we pivoted towards an Explorer. And yeah, we've been building an Explorer for 2 years-ish now, maybe, okay, yeah, 2 years-ish. And what we realized was that there's two different categories that you have to build data on. You can choose to build data sets for analytics, and that would probably have a slew of problems, right? You got to store a shitload of data, and you got to find a way to make it as fast, as fresh as possible. So what we call data freshness is how old is the data that you gathered? When you retrieve the data now, is it the data that's 30 minutes ago? Is it an hour ago or something? And so that's a problem that Dune and a few other products like Nansen and others are trying to solve. We even have Subsquid and we have many more. but I may be wrong. So on that front, we pivoted away from that. And then now we are focusing more on real-time data sets. So examples would be like, hey, I want to see like I have 1 million token holders for my meme coin. How do I access them at like live sub-second levels? So we're solving problems like that. So it's problems that are very, very focused, very niche. So I want to like be able to track all of the transfers out of a wallet or inbound to a wallet. Then that's a problem that we're trying to solve. So you want to, like, it's just like an iBanking app, right? Like you want to see like all of the incoming deposits over the past day. You need it quick. You don't want to waste time. So yeah, I generally feel that like in Solana in general, we have to break down like the problem in like 2 different categories. I mean, there's still more subcategories. I mean, we even have Oracle data to cover as well. But yeah, you have 2 main parts: slow versus like scalable, or fast and like niche.
Yeah, and you know, when you're looking at a transaction on an Explorer, if I click that link to that transaction ID and nothing is showing for 5 minutes, I mean, I'm clicking away after like 5 seconds. So it needs to be very quick, right? It's very important. I guess on the Switchboard side of things over there, so Mitch, like you were talking a little bit before off the panel about polling on oracles versus how we're currently getting data.
Yeah.
So maybe explain a little bit what are oracles doing right now, and what's some of the new stuff which you guys are doing, and how does that benefit anyone that's utilizing an oracle to provide a price feed for anything, the temperature in Istanbul today or whatever it might be?
Definitely. Well, when you think about data, it comes down to 2 things. It's availability and freshness, just like Nick's point here. You care about how old that data is. And in Switchboard currently, what we do is we follow this model of oracles that existed basically since the beginning of the blockchain, where oracles push when a price varies after a certain amount. That's actually very inefficient. And how do you tell how fresh this price actually is? Because you only know about the timestamp where the oracle updated. Do you know if it's being honest? You can't tell about the honesty there. What oracles are moving to now is something called a poll model, where they have their own data layer, and users can go query that, bring data on in the same transaction. So there's 0 staleness in the data that they bring on. It's very nice because you have so much less to worry about for protocol risk of how old this price actually is when you have to interact with it. You don't have to freeze your pools to make sure your price update comes up, and it's a better user experience overall. And another benefit of poll models is that when you do this, you can actually make a data feed, bring information, and then close the data feed at the end of your transaction, which allows you to make really temporary data feeds for anything. And if you think about what limits an ecosystem growth, it's data. Data for social metrics, data for long-tail markets. Just to expand on the social metrics point, let's say that you need something to collect Facebook stats and Twitter stats for a social platform you need. How do you bring that on? With Switchboard, for each profile, you can actually make a temporary data feed that you spin up in the same transaction. People integrate their stats from Twitter, integrate your stats from Facebook, put that on chain, tear down the feed, and it's 0 cost, and it's extremely scalable for the oracles and the user and the protocol overall.
So in the same transaction,
Yes.
spinning up the data and then basically deleting it again or getting rid of it at the end of, or in the same transaction.
Essentially, if you don't want to worry about the rent of that very temporary data feed, and you only need this once for, say, account initialization, you don't have to worry about how short-lived this data needs to be on chain as long as it's accessible.
Right.
And you just need to be have a place for it to live while it's read by your protocol.
And is that because a lot of the data that's used by oracles, it kind of always exists, right? It's always being put on the chain. Even if it's used, it might not be used, right? So then it's wasted, right? If you're putting data onto the chain and then it's not used, then it's like it's a waste of rent, it's a waste of money, it's a waste of bandwidth, all this kind of stuff, right?
Exactly. And when you have these poll models, how most of them work is that they always have all of these streams to a data layer. So somewhere these data feeds are always active. Switchboard actually works differently. We call it on demand for a reason, where only when a user requests a piece of data does the oracle go and refresh it from all of its sources right then. So it's the most fetch network efficient oracle that does exist on Solana, and as far as I know from my experience to date, to aggregate this data and make sure we have the best network health experience externally overall.
Yeah, and just building on this theme of data freshness, and Bobby, with CoinGecko, I mean, because you guys are on every chain, on every DEX, on every centralized exchange. You are just ingesting so much data that you can't show everything at once all the time, right? Like you can't show real-time feeds of literally everything. So you have to make a choice. And how does that work in maybe looking at, say, Gecko Terminal, which is looking for live trading data, right? Versus like CoinGecko.com, where, okay, maybe there's a delay of however many minutes or something like that. And you have to like make that call of what's actually worthwhile to show and what's not.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we rely a lot on caching because we have hundreds of millions of page views. So we use Cloudflare a lot on CoinGecko. So sometimes, especially on the API as well, like a lot of requests are coming by as well. So we rely on caching, and then cache refreshes every minute or so. So maybe data is like on CoinGecko, maybe it might be delayed by 1 or 2 minutes. But not only that, like there's just so many tickers that we kind of go. But part of that as well is kind of an engineering problem. How do we kind of spin up enough workers and basically pull all the data that we need in a fast enough manner, and then calculate and show and spits out the volume-weighted average price in a fast manner. On Gecko Terminal, it's a slightly different, and dealing with a code base that's nearly 10 years old as well, that has its own issues. So a lot of engineering resources to kind of update and refresh the workers. On Gecko Terminal, I mean, there's a lot of reading data from all the different chains. At some point, we are probably nearing that limit. Like we probably reached some limits on the database. So how do we scale the database to support all these different chains? Because like we have like 3 million tokens, and I think we are just at the first inning, and we'll probably have 1 billion tokens in the next 10 years. Like it wouldn't surprise me.
Are you still going to be indexing 1 billion tokens? Like
yeah, why
okay.
not? Like I mean, it wouldn't surprise me that we have 1,000 chains by the end of this year, and we have 3 million tokens right now. It's just a matter of time before we reach 1 billion. Maybe not this year, probably the next 5 to 10 years, 1 billion tokens. And then, I mean, because if you think about tokenization of everything, like everything will be tokenized. Everybody will put anything on as a token, and people will be trading memes and all kinds of things. There will just be so much data out there. So that at least is what we are trying to build at CoinGecko. How do we build the infrastructure and help everybody make sense of this world with 1 billion tokens?
Well, yeah, the last point, you're making sense, getting people on board and making sense of all of this data, right? So maybe back to Nick, like, what are customers asking for? Like, what do they want? And I know you guys have gone through a bit of a revolution of late, right? In the last year or so, or something like that. You're sort of trying out different things, experimenting, what works, what doesn't. But yeah, what do customers want? What are you building? What's in the works?
So there are a couple of moving parts. So the first thing is actually speed. Yeah, you're right. You're right on like the sentence you had like, 5 minutes ago, which is users and explorers actually don't really give a damn if like the explorer is not fast enough. So it's like when you load a transaction or you load an account, it needs to be snap at your fingers, right? Snap off your fingers. And that's the annoying part. So you got to be fast. And the second thing is that users generally expect like information breakdowns to be as fast as you can make. So it means that like data is fun, right? We all love data. Like everybody in this panel, everybody in the room probably loves data. Data is great, like information is great. But database, not so fun. So yeah, you add the base, the word at the end, you're dead. So problem with that is that like people want to see transfers, histories, and like actions, activities of an account as fast as they could. And they want it dumbed down to them to the point where like there's no cognitive load. Like you don't have to like spend 5 seconds to read the entire page to understand. And yeah, that's where we put more focus and emphasis on today. And another thing that we want to really focus on is to maintain the performance without like, while we're introducing new functions and like better understanding or quick understanding, yeah, we basically have to do that. So yeah, that's where we're looking at.
So it's about scaling and trying to meet the needs that people want at the same time of trying to add value above and beyond other explorers out there as
so
well.
it needs to be as dumb as possible. It needs to be super summarized. Like if a user can understand that this is like, I'm doing like an OTC trade, yeah, that's great. Then yeah, it's basically explaining the transaction in just one line. You don't have to read the entire transaction to understand because you already have context of that. And then the other thing is that it has to be fast. Exactly the same problem that Mitch has which is like if your data is not fresh in an Explorer, you're dead. Like, wait, why am I seeing like 0.5 Sol in like Soulscan, and then why am I seeing like 0.4 Sol in SolanaFM? Like, wait, what's going on?
Yeah.
You get that a lot of times, but yeah.
Yeah. And I guess over to Mitch. So what are customers looking for in terms of an Oracle? I mean, you guys have been around for a few years now. You've kind of seen it all. And as an Oracle, it's a necessary infrastructure component for building all of these DeFi things. I mean, we have a lending panel, I think, later today. That's a good example of a platform or platforms that require oracles, right? So it's kind of like, it's this unsung hero of data that's necessary. But like, what are your customers, I guess, are like other projects mainly, or developers, or what are they looking for? What do they want?
90% of people that come to us are in the DeFi space. We get people who want randomness, which we do provide as well. We get some social applications that want some more complex data, which I think is something that's really enabled by the new product set. What we really see is asks for these longer tail data feeds that you need to know the liquidity information about. You need to know the risk information. If it's going to be cross-collateral, you have to know about the risk that these protocols are taking. So how much risk is incurred by adding these new pairs, adding these new feeds? Not just listing it, knowing the volatility, knowing the security of it. It's not just the spot prices or data points that you need here. Most of it handled by TWAPs. You can handle it by getting historical data, which then comes to, are you tracking it locally, or are you getting it from an indexer? If you're getting it from an indexer, is that verifiable? So it comes down to those latencies, those questions, verification sources of the data. So really when we do this, we look for verification sources from other platforms. So we actually can aggregate a bunch of poll models into our platform and do the verification that those other platforms do on chain. So we act as an Oracle aggregation service as well. So you can actually use other Oracle platforms through Switchboard, make index from those, and then add parameters and add risk adjustments to that as well.
And you need to be really careful with adding any new features, right? Like, I think a lot of us on this panel, except you really, like, we can put a new button on the website and then, cool, if the button doesn't work, I mean, it's not going to blow up tomorrow. But if an Oracle price feed is incorrect, man, that can liquidate $1 billion.
Yeah, we are very lucky to have great auditors, OtterSec, I'll give them a shout out, are a very, very, very talented group, and they work very closely with us from day to day.
Yeah, amazing. And Bobby, so the Gecko community is awesome. I've been to Gecko cons as well, and it's huge, right? So the customer base, what are they asking for? What do they want? I mean, you guys went and built a Gecko terminal, I guess, through sort of finding out, hey, this is where we should be in the market. But like, what are you looking to build in the future? What do people want? And how do you like interact with people as well?
Yeah, so over the years, what we've learned is that people are very interested to know the price of a coin. I mean, if you're holding a meme coin or whatever small coin, like no matter how obscure it is, you want to know the information about a coin. So like, price being one of them, but besides price, people are looking for the market cap, the fully diluted valuation, what is the total value locked, if there's any in this contract. And like, there's always like, where can I trade this coin? Is it on a SEX or the DEX? Where can I trade these things? And then once that is done, I mean, people are always looking like, okay, people look at the price chart, they'll be staring at it. I mean, some people might be drawing support and resistance lines. And then some people are asking like, and in crypto, as it happens all the time, it's like prices are really volatile. Prices move up, move down, and then people ask, why did it move up? Why did it move down?
Yeah.
Easier said, like, I mean, finding the reasons is not something so
more
easy
buyers
to do.
than sellers and more sellers than buyers. Maybe that's it.
Very easy to answer, but like, why?
Yeah.
So those are some of the problems that we are trying to crack. Like, how do we help provide more context to users? But not the easiest thing as always. But at the very least, like ensuring that the token that people want to find is available, and then some of the basic information. But obviously, things like circulating supply, it's easier said than done. Like, everybody wants to know the market cap, but market cap is like a big, hairy problem that nobody really knows. If you really dig deep into the problem, and Nick will allude to it, there's a lot of different ways, and calculating how many tokens are burned, very easy on Ethereum, but extremely hard on Solana. Maybe it's a good time to switch this question to Josh. What have you seen on Step Finance and Solana Flow? What do users want when they use your products?
Yeah, hey, good question. Thank you, Bobby. Look, I think at Step, people come to Step to see the value of their portfolio, number one. So they want to see all of where their money's at in their address. And for us, it's like a continuous treadmill of always having to add a new protocol. Oh, a new protocol launched yesterday. Okay, now we need to drop everything and try and integrate it. Can we integrate it? Probably not, because it's not open source and it doesn't have any IDLs anywhere. Okay, what do? We need to go and talk to the project, and okay, they take 2 weeks to respond to us, and oh, they have an API and it kind of sucks, and you know, it's very difficult. But if we don't do that, then people log into Step and then they don't show the whole value of their portfolio. So it's kind of like we kind of have to, even if there's maybe no immediate benefit for us. But I think a lot of us are sort of trying to push, like, yeah, go ahead.
It almost feels like all of us are kind of like duplicating the work. For example, when Token 2022 came out, like there's all these new token standards, and like got drop all that we're working on and try to integrate and make sense of Token 2022. Otherwise, like you can't find this token on SolanaFM, Step, and Gecko Terminal.
Well, a good example of that is the NFTs with Solana Floor, right? So Solana Floor has been giving floor price data for NFTs. Actually, people are like, oh, there's a common NFT standard, Metaplex, and not really. Actually, people kind of roll their own stuff all the time. They just create new standards, or it's not done correctly, or it's, you know, there's some niche thing that means that we have to do some manual work to try and get it. So I would love to live in a world where we can all not duplicate our efforts, but unfortunately, I think the reality is that we kind of have to at the moment. Maybe that will change over time. Maybe like a few more years, you know, there'll just be one standard to rule more. But maybe that's also like open source development, right? Like Linux, there's a million just different versions of distributions, right? And
I think a common theme here is that we're all about data aggregation, not specifically data creation, data aggregation. And we deal with the same problems that you face. We have to integrate with all these protocols to get the first-party sources, not relaying from a Kahneman index because we need the verifiability still in there. And just integrate so many projects and solutions into your solution.
Absolutely. And so how do you guys think about monetizing that as well? Because, okay, if we think of the Web 2 companies of the world, the Microsofts or something like that, okay, you're some big company, you have a logo and a stamp and a piece of paper and a contract and blah, 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 and then you sign like a agreement for X many years to use their cloud software for whatever and pay them for data. For us, I think we're all kind of like selling APIs or, I don't know, like putting buttons on websites to try and monetize things. Maybe Nick, like how are you thinking about monetization for an Explorer? An Explorer gets a lot of eyes, but perhaps it's maybe difficult to find the ways to, well, I guess all of us have the same challenges. It's like we show you the data and it's like, okay, cool, can you pay for it now? How do you do that?
Yeah, so explorers are in a very like difficult or weird situation or position in the sense where like I think most users in general in Solana are using Soulscan as a default explorer, and then SolanaFM is a de facto number 2. So the thing that we have here is that we realized like Soulscan just released ads pretty much recently, and it always had ads that were like, you know, a bit sketchy, scammy, and it will redirect you outside of Solana and you go back to EVM or something like that. So that's something that we realized that we shouldn't do, and a number of partners around us would definitely support us. They've been telling us like don't do ads because like if you do ads then it will redirect users towards other chains and it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So, but the problem
even though you might want to, right? Like advertising actually brings in good money, especially if you have a website where a lot of people go to.
Yeah, so we have at least 1 million site visits a month, and the problem with that is that it's going to be a huge source of revenue for us. But what we realized is that like the partners and other DApps, like decentralized apps in Solana, really need a lot of support for distribution. I mean, even for us, we still have a lot of distribution streams to go before we hit like monopoly or duopoly in general. So what I'm more focused on is like, I still want to do ads and we still want to do ads in general, but we want to do it more collaboratively, something that's more like complementary towards other projects in Solana. So you probably wouldn't expect to see ads so soon, but if you do see ads, it's going to be like Soulflare, it's going to be Step, it's going to be various sites and platforms in Solana so that the entire cycle goes like in a circular economy, something like that. And then really more importantly is that like explorers are just too traditional, it's very Web 2 focused. I can't say the same for CoinGecko. I say CoinGecko is more Web 3 than it is Web 2 because It's pushing its limits towards like scaling towards many hundreds of chains. And I mean million tokens, right? Oh my God. So Solana doesn't have that much. I hope not.
Soon be.
Does Solana have that much?
Not yet, but soon.
Actually, very soon, right? So that's the problem. So we like explorers are more Web 2 than Web 3 because explorers generally pull data from RPC providers, pull data from the chain, and the data stays within our database. It doesn't stay within a network. I mean, you do have data on the network like transactions and accounts, but that's it. The other data that you see that's quick is usually loaded and stored by our servers. And what we believe is that like the next step is to go like social, is to go like Web3. So what we want to do in Explorer is like, maybe we could like plug in together with Twitter, right? Maybe we could share tags, we could share labels. Like maybe you have a friend who loves like following people on the chain and like, oh, this guy's a good trader, I should tag him as a good trader, I should tag this guy as a good trader. But you don't get to earn anything from that. And so what we thought of is like, yeah, we definitely should build a social explorer because an explorer really presents you with so much like data sets or data or pieces of information that's easy to consume. You bundle it together with like social, you bundle it together with friends. Man, it's gonna be crazy. So yeah, what we're looking forward to onwards with monetization is definitely social. We're going social and yeah, we can't wait to show everyone what we're up with.
Yeah. Makes sense. We've got a few more minutes to go, but I guess for both Mitch and Bobby, like, how are you guys thinking about monetization? Maybe at Switchboard, like, as an oracle, you mentioned the staleness and paying rent, but like, what going forward? How do you monetize?
Yeah. So I mean, with the traditional push oracle, we have to charge a lease or a rent for each of these data feeds for the oracles to support it, because the oracles actually have to incur the gas costs and the priority fees to make sure the data is fresh. With the variability of gas costs, it's actually, it doesn't come out to too much of a profit for the operators as it is today. And that's why the on-demand model, which also brings zero staleness, the freshest prices possible, is a lot more conducive to other people running these oracles, because then the oracles don't submit the transaction, and it's actually the user who wants to commit their action, submitting the prices in their transaction, which is signed by the oracles. So in that way, it's not two separate entities that have to worry about the gas costs. It's much more efficient gas-wise and for the chain, and it makes it much more reasonable for charging for these long-tail data feeds. You only need to pay for it right when you need it. So it really makes sense when you have a borrow-lend pool. You only need it when a user interacts with it. Why charge when there's nobody touching the pool? You don't need to know the cost of the collateral. Doesn't make sense. On-demand is really a very special way to build a data flow when you only need something. Let's say you have a very long-tail pool. People only interact with it once every 30 minutes or an hour. Don't need to update that every 5 seconds. Only charge the protocol, or actually incur the cost to the people bringing the data on to update the feed. And in that way, the protocol never actually has to pay for the data feed in the first place, because the user actually just pays the gas cost for the oracle when they interact with it.
Yeah. So I think it's just a more efficient use of resources, and maybe that more efficient use of resources will potentially bring on more customers as well that would look to do it. I guess as well, so Bobby's sort of rounding us out, like monetization at CoinGecko. I mean, you guys are kind of in a position where, because you're across all chains, you're not like running an oracle or a specific chain or doing something there, so you maybe have a little bit more freedom there, but everyone kind of relies on the CoinGecko data for, okay, what's the price of Bitcoin today? So maybe it's trading firms or something like that.
Yes, I mean, for us, advertising is a big driver of revenue. A lot of people have, negative perception of advertising, but the reality is in the tech industry, advertising is a big driver. I mean, the big tech firms like Google, Facebook, even Amazon these days rely on a lot of advertising to drive. In fact, Google and Facebook is like 90% of their revenue comes from advertising. So it's a tried and tested Web 2 business model that is proven. The only thing is this a non-recurring revenue. But we started doing more recurring revenue, like the data sales, for example, the API. And I think yesterday during dinner, I think we were having some discussion on what other sources of revenue could come in, and we're discussing should, for example, we run a Solana validator, for example. That
all
could
of us are thinking this as well. Like maybe this is a good idea. All individual projects run a validator.
Yeah, I think validators are interesting, especially like consumer-facing applications that have a large user base. There could be an opportunity to run a validator that is a relatively higher ranking, and that could be a relatively good revenue driver. So that's something that we're thinking about. I think getting into the transaction flow, and I think like a couple of yesterday when Seong from Jupiter was on stage, I didn't talk about how some of their partners here actually drive a lot of revenue from the API. So that I think could be interesting moving into the transaction flow as well.
Yeah, no, I really like the sort of stake to access idea. It's kind of like everyone can have an LST and you can stake that, maybe get access, or that's how you pay for it. But yeah, we're at time now, but so I'll let everyone go and get some lunch. For VIPs, it's in the room. Was it downstairs actually? But otherwise, all around the Hilton, there's lots of good food places. But thank you so much for joining us, panelists. And yeah, we'll meet back in after the break. So,
All right.
talk to you all soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.